Many people assume that someone who prefers being alone is just shy or socially anxious. However, psychology reveals that a preference for solitude is rarely about a fear of others. One, they have strong personal boundaries. Psychology calls this self-differentiation. It is the ability to separate your own needs from the demands of the group. These individuals have a clear sense of where they end and where others begin. They aren't looking for external validation to feel complete. This independence makes them highly protective of their mental and physical energy. Imagine you receive a last-minute invite to a loud party on a Friday night. Someone with weak boundaries might say yes just to avoid feeling guilty. A person who values solitude will politely decline if they are tired. They do this because they have already committed that time to rest. This practice means they experience significantly less social burnout in the long run. They don't build up hidden resentment toward their friends and family. This happens because they never agree to social events they actually hate. You might notice how much lighter life feels when you stop accepting empty obligations. Do you feel like your time is truly your own? Or does your daily schedule mostly belong to everyone else? By holding these firm limits, they ensure their social interactions are intentional. They focus on quality connections rather than a high quantity of people. Protecting your time is just the first step in understanding the power of solitude. While boundaries guard your schedule, the next trait changes how you see your inner world. You might recognize the feeling of finally being alone after a loud, chaotic day. 2. High self-awareness is a core trait of those who prefer solitude. When you are alone, your brain stops filtering the opinions of everyone around you. Psychology calls the process of looking inward introspection. This isn't just daydreaming or getting lost in your own thoughts. It is an active mental habit of checking in with your own state. Without social pressure, you can finally hear your own authentic voice clearly. Research suggests solitude provides the space for high-level self-processing. Think about how you handle a sudden bad mood while you are alone. Instead of distracting yourself, you might sit down and start journaling. You trace the feeling back to a specific conversation or event. You find the root cause rather than just reacting to the surface emotion. This practice allows you to understand your triggers in real time. As a result, you become very difficult for others to manipulate because you know your own mind. External influence has less power. You can spot when someone is trying to project their feelings onto you. This clarity gives you a level of emotional stability others might lack. You aren't easily swayed by the latest trends or groupthink. Your decisions are based on personal values rather than social validation. Have you ever noticed how much clearer your choices feel after a weekend alone? That sudden, aha moment is actually your self-awareness kicking in. You start to see the difference between what you want and what they want. This inner knowledge acts as your most powerful tool for growth. It turns your time alone from a break into a superpower. You are building a relationship with the only person who is always there. That person is you, and knowing them deeply changes everything. Being self-aware also means you handle emotions differently than most. It is easy to assume that social distance leads to a lack of empathy. 3. High emotional intelligence. Psychology shows that solitude allows you to master your own internal landscape. When you are not managing other people's noise, you hear yourself clearly. Cognitive psychology calls this effective empathy, or the ability to feel what others feel. Because you know your own triggers, you become sensitive to shifts in others. You notice the subtle body language that most people miss in a busy room. Imagine walking into a room and instantly feeling a friend's hidden stress. They haven't said a word, but you catch a slight tension in their jaw. You register a small change in their energy that everyone else ignores. Instead of small talk, you ask them if they are doing okay. This level of insight makes shallow connections feel exhausting for you. You naturally prefer quality over quantity when it comes to your friends. You would rather have 2 deep bonds than dozens of superficial ones. This can make you seem picky or even elitist to outsiders. In reality, you are just protecting your emotional energy from being wasted. Have you ever felt completely drained by a room full of strangers? That is your emotional intelligence trying to process too much data. You are not antisocial. You are simply highly sensitive to emotional truth. When you choose to be alone, you are recharging that internal sensor. Solitude prevents your empathy from turning into compassion fatigue. This fatigue happens when you give so much emotional support that you break. Alone time acts as a pressure release valve for your sensitive mind. The time you do spend with others becomes incredibly powerful. People likely come to you when they need real advice or comfort. They feel seen by you in a way they rarely feel elsewhere. While some see isolation as a cage, for others it is a vast laboratory. 4. You likely possess an incredibly open and curious mind. Psychology calls this trait openness, or a natural hunger for new ideas. Solitude provides the mental sanctuary needed to explore thoughts without social pressure. When you are alone, you do not have to filter your interests for others. You can follow a rabbit hole as deep as your curiosity demands. Think about those nights you spent researching a niche, obscure historical event. Perhaps you decided to learn a complex new craft just for yourself. No one was watching, so no one was there to call it weird. This freedom allows your brain to make connections that others often miss. As a result, you are far less likely to fall for groupthink. You form your opinions based on data and reflection, not social trends. At work or in your community, you provide unique solutions. While everyone else follows the herd, you are looking at the horizon. This intellectual independence is a direct byproduct of your time spent alone. You find yourself questioning things that others simply accept as truth. That urge to dig deeper is a sign your mind is thriving. You aren't being difficult, you are being thorough and mentally alive. You value the why much more than the what or the who. Research suggests that this trait makes you more adaptable to change. Because you aren't anchored to social norms, you can pivot faster. When life gets chaotic, your internal world remains a structured place. You don't need a crowd to tell you how to feel about a crisis. You trust your own judgment because you've spent the time testing it. This makes you an anchor for others, even if you prefer to drift alone. But having an open mind is only half of the story. Your solitude also builds a level of dependability that is increasingly rare. Many people assume that those who live solitary lives are flaky or disorganized. 5. Extreme reliability. Psychology shows that solitary people often score high in the trait of conscientiousness. This means you have a strong internal drive to follow through on promises. Because you value your own time, you naturally respect everyone else's time too. You do not view commitments as casual suggestions or things that can be moved. If you tell a friend you will help them move at noon, you arrive early. You would rather be early than waste 1 minute of someone else's life. This habit makes you the hidden rock of your entire social circle. People know that if everything falls apart, you are the one who stays consistent. Your words carry a weight that most people can only dream of having. Even though you are the least social, you are often the most trusted. You might find yourself exhausted by people who treat deadlines like vague guesses. Do you feel a deep sense of guilt if you are even slightly late? That is your internal integrity, protecting your own standard of character. You realize that your word is one of the few things you fully control. Preferring solitude does not mean you are shutting the world out. It means you are choosing exactly where to spend your limited energy. These 5 traits prove that your time alone is actually your greatest strength. Ultimately, the truth is that solitude is a masterclass in self-possession.